Welcome to the Pit Check. This is your weekly news for the best new albums from your favorite heavy bands. This week we've got a ton of hardcore punk, as well as some old school death metal bands. We've also got a couple nasty deathcore bands, and even a few underrated metalcore and mathcore bands as well. And of course, like always, at the end of the video, I'll have a list of all of the albums that we did and did not cover this week. So, like always, subscribe to the channel, and let's get right into this week's best new extreme metal and hardcore albums. Want some old school Blackened death metal? Celebrating their 35th anniversary, the Polish death metal band known only as Hate have just released their 13th studio album, Bellum Regiis. Hate have always been known for their fusion of highly technical and precise traditional death metal with a ton of classic black metal influences, like tremolo riffs, blast beats, and atmospheric and even ethereal ambiance. But over the years, they have evolved to incorporate more symphonic metal and even industrial elements, which give them a massive, haunting, and dark sound. This album reminded me a lot of early Behemoth or Gorgoroth, you know, that kind of somber and melancholic death metal with wildly impressive instrumentals across the board. And seriously, someone give this drummer a raise or a nap, because dude doesn't rest for a second on this album. So if you like melodic, traditional death metal and black metal, or you want something that's both beautiful and atmospheric, but also riffy and surprisingly heavy, definitely check out the new album, Bellum Regiis, by the band Hate. Let's actually keep on theme here with the 90s death metal. Need some Mediterranean metal? Nightfall is a Blackened death metal band formed in Athens, Greece in 1991, and they have just released their 11th studio album, Children of Eve. Nightfall is one of the holy trinity of Greek metal, alongside Septic Flesh and Rotting Christopher, all known for being on the cutting edge of adding a lot of those symphonic, goth, and black metal elements into their death metal. And I mean this as a compliment, I swear, but I'm surprised at just how accessible this album is. It's atmospheric and melodic and groovy, and has all these fun and catchy riffs. It almost tricks you into forgetting how heavy this album actually is. It's also a surprisingly deeply personal album, delving into a lot of themes of living with pain, self-doubt, mental health, and even their struggles with institutionalized religion. The vocalist was recently diagnosed with depression, and so he wears a black half mask to symbolize what it's like living with and having to hide this half of yourself. And that theme goes deep through this release, and it perfectly complements their black metal meets theatrical death metal doom sound. Need some 808s and bass drops in your deathcore? In Gloom is a grossly heavy Florida deathcore band, and they've just released their sophomore album, In Gloom 2, True Violence and All the Terror That Comes With It. This album is extremely down-tempo and loaded with tons of beatdown and slam breakdowns. And they're also not afraid to add in some off-the-walls samples and electronic elements. And I like the way that the two vocalists bounce off each other back and forth. The two of them will like chain together their screams one after another for this like non-stop wall of gutturals. Sure, okay, the instrumentals here don't exactly reinvent the wheel, but not that they really need to in this genre. But the instrumentals here are every bit as aggressive and raw as you'd want them to be, with zero shortage of riffs, chugs, blast beats, and halftime chaos.
Oh my god, is that in Gloom?
So if you want some sludgy, nasty deathcore, check out this new album by In Gloom. Do you like panic chords? Fall50feet is a mathcore, metalcore, post-hardcore band, and they've got a new album out titled Counterfeit Recollections. This is a chaotic as hell band that refuses to stay committed to any one single genre. There's the aforementioned genres as well as grunge and emo and post-rock and even Myspace core. This band just does whatever they want. Fall50feet has this uncanny way of feeling familiar and nostalgic, while also still being incredibly fresh and unique. They'll give you pieces of metalcore choruses or Deftones-style discordant harmonies to kind of latch onto, only to rip them away for something crazy and technical. I really enjoyed this album. It's got a lot of emotion and atmosphere, but it still gives you all of the riffs and breakdowns you could possibly want. If you're a fan of earlier era Every Time I Die or the Callous Dow Boys, I highly recommend this new album, Counterfeit Recollections by Fall50feet. Want some UK hardcore punk, but with some saxophone?
It's a statement, a suffocation of bliss. He raises his hands as he shoots from the hip. You find a noose that will fit.
Knives is a super fun and punk-leaning hardcore band from Bristol, and they have just released their debut album, Glitter. This album is nothing but good vibes. Like, yeah, sure, it's angry and political, but it's just so upbeat and groovy and dancey, you can't help but have a good time.
Your heart can bear all this greed. Bleed. Jab on the sword just to take.
And I love the vocals from this band. The patterns and inflections are sharp and punky, and kind of pull some influence from some UK grime and underground rap scenes. And there's also a lot of fun back and forth between the lead vocalist and the saxophone player. Oh, and speaking of the sax player, the inclusion of saxophone here is flawless. It's incorporated so well without ever feeling like a gimmick. Sometimes they'll use it to add a chaotic undertone, other times it'll be for a thicker bass on a breakdown. It always sounds great and never overstays its welcome. I also always have to point out whenever there's an awesome bass player. I love having the bass cranked up in the mix, especially on punk albums. There's just so many awesome grooves and melodies, and this band puts them right in the forefront. I had a great time with this one, so I'm gonna highly recommend this new album, Glitter, by the band Knives.
We can't see both sides of the door. It's hard to get a handle on this double-edged sword.
Do you miss when metalcore had riffs? Your Spirit Dies is an incredible old-school metalcore band, and they've just released their debut album, My Gnawing Pains Will Never Rest. And I mean it when I say old school metalcore. This is like some early Unearth, Misery Signals at the Gates vibes. This album is also insanely technical, with wall-to-wall melodic death metal riffs and absolutely ass-beating breakdowns. I also really dig that this band isn't trying too hard to be like Throwback core. This genuinely sounds like a 90s, 2000s metalcore band that was trying to carve their own lane in the scene, instead of like how a lot of bands sound like a generic knockoff of pre-existing 90s, 2000s bands. If you like driving guitar melodies and classic in-your-face metalcore, raw vocals, and even features from Xiao, No Cure, and the Callous Dowboys, check out this debut album from Your Spirit Dies. Need a mix of hardcore punk and Powerviolence? Xiao is a hardcore band from Stockholm, Sweden, and they've just released their debut album, Control. Right out of the gate, this album is angry as hell. The vocals are piercing, and the tempo and pacing never let up. This is 14 songs of relentless aggression. And even though there are 14 songs, this album is barely 23 minutes. Classic. But each song manages to have its own vibe and identity without ever feeling formulaic or repetitive. I love how grinding and chaotic these instruments are. The guitars have a ton of southern and hardcore riffs, and bounce back and forth seamlessly from death grind to beatdown. If you need some extremely aggressive, angry, and politically charged hardcore punk, definitely check out Xiao and their newest album, Control. Do you miss Myspace, slam, and deathcore? Man, Tom knew what was up. Then the Indiana-based old-school deathcore revival band Mauled has you covered with their newest self-titled EP.
Why do I blame myself?
If you love that mid to late 2000s era of deathcore and slam, like Waking the Cadaver or Despised Icon or Abacab or to some extent Job for a Cowboy, then this is the band you've been waiting for. This is the kind of band that wants to make deathcore scary again. Visceral and blood-curdling vocals, the lowest guitar chugs possible, and an extremely raw and grimy production. And of course you can't forget that insane Metallica Saint Anger snare. There's also an awesome feature from Psycho Frame, whose style fits perfectly here with this disgustingly heavy, grimy vibe.
All I want is
So if you need something heavier than Andre the Giant standing on a neutron star, check out this new EP by Mauled. Need some Quebec hardcore?
big boys, don't try!
Bro, Canada has hockey. You can't be surprised they have hardcore bands. The hardcore punk band Don't Try have just released their newest EP, Cries of Domination.
Like a player, trying to smell death!
If you like super aggressive and up-tempo and raw hardcore with some wildly beefy riffs, definitely take the 10 minutes to spin this new EP. I loved how this release manages to be so angry and driving and punishing, but it can't help but be fun. I really wish this was longer than 4 songs because each song is genuinely incredible. Their transitions especially are flawless. They can go from a solo to a halftime to a melody to a crushing breakdown and not even break a sweat. I have nothing but good things to say about this band. I just really cannot wait for a full length from these guys. Alright, and as promised, here are the list of all of the bands that we did and did not cover this week. There's a bunch of really good stuff in here, so I highly recommend checking out anything that looks interesting. Thanks again for joining me on these weekly new album release news updates, and I'll catch you next week for another pit check.